What's up? Welcome to our tech hiring webinar. My name is Ryan Kohler. We're just going to wait for a second here, let a few people join this. If you could. Sorry, I had to shut the door so that we didn't have any noise. So if you could go over to the chat box and you can throw in a chat into the window here. To let us know where you're from, how big your company is. I know we've got Kellen here. Maybe throw in where you're from, how big your company is, and maybe one of your biggest hiring pains. Just as we have, this is live, but also will be recorded. So if you're on the recording, clearly it's a little bit different if you're just watching this. But today we're going to talk specifically around the pains of hiring in the tech world. And I'm going to try to make sure that we get at least some level of tips that you can walk away from, that you can go and work with. But to be honest, I think one of the most powerful things that the average company can do right now is to sit down and be, I put on here, brutally honest assessment, to assess where they're at. And so that's going to be the goal today. I'm going to give you some low-hanging fruit, hopefully some hope that you can realize. I think that's one of the biggest problems right off the bat in the tech world, not just the tech world, but the world at large right now. Most businesses, owners, managers, depending on their size, but especially the smaller guys, effectively believe that there's not really a whole lot of hope of how to solve their recruiting problems. And so today I'm going to start off just with a little hope, and then I'm going to walk through maybe a way that you can sit down with your founding team, your management team, even just yourself, and really think through the structure of what could be causing the problems of what's going on. So let's start with the very first part, though, as we jump into this. The very first paradigm problem we have is that, generally speaking, most business owners, managers, whoever it is in the United States, as of right now today, believe that there is a massive shortage of potential people to hire. And they're pointing the finger at unemployment rates coming down, the government paying extra money for people who are unemployed. So let's just start with that one right off the bat. Generally speaking, tech companies do not hire unemployed people. Generally speaking, most companies have biased against unemployed people. And so the idea that the unemployment rate has any deal whatsoever with your ability to hire somebody is kind of it's a distraction. And that's really the goal. Does it have some potential impact? Sure, it does. But the biggest thing right off the bat is there's nothing you could do about it anyway. There's literally nothing any of us can do to change the unemployment rate, change what the government does with the employment payouts, or anything like that. So let's just take anything that is a big macroeconomic problem, governmental driven, societal driven, location you're part of the country driven, and throw those out. They're important for you to know. But they're only valid if you say, and so we, right? Unemployment rate is coming down, and so we did something else, did something to be able to react towards it. I think tech companies and founders tend to be a little more aggressive and creative about that because we deal with these kind of things all the time than, say, a restaurant or a hotel or a construction company owner. But we still get caught up potentially in the same problem set or the same mental trap of believing there's macroeconomic problems, there's a talent shortage, there's whatever the case may be, there's too high a cost of living, whatever, instead of just focusing on what we can control. So that's number one. Number two, I want to give you a little hope. While we're certainly hearing about how hard it is to hire and how difficult it is to find applicants for jobs, I want to start just with Indeed, just right off the bat. This is a data study I did on Indeed. It's 3 months worth of data across 7,000 companies, across all different areas of the country, across all different industries. And the biggest thing I want everybody to pay attention to is the difference between this number right here and this number right here. Shown in results means Indeed gives us data as a applicant tracking or a hiring software provider of how many times our clients' jobs appear in the results for a search. And most founders tend to be at least a little bit versed in SEO. If you have an SEO background, think about this as shown in the results means when somebody searched, your website showed in the top 10 on Google, meaning on the first page. Or shown in results means every time that your listing shows up in the page that is loaded. What that means from the job boards is that shown in the results means for this group of test clients, when somebody searched for a title plus location, Indeed matched it and said, this job is a match. It doesn't mean they clicked to read it. 507 million people. Now, of those 507 million people, 25.5 million actually clicked to read the ad. Of those 3.5 million actually started applying, and of those 2.9 million actually finished applying. This right here is less than 1% conversion rate down the funnel. Now, what does this mean? Here's what I want the number one takeaway from this be. It means that more than 99 people are looking for your job in your area for every one person that ends up in your inbox. And to be honest, like this 84%, this is actually a fairly rosy picture compared to what most employers are seeing. Most employers are probably seeing, like this group here sees 99 versus 1 apply. 99 people search for the job versus one person who actually ends up in their inbox. Most employers would see something more in the range of 150 to 200 people looking for their job versus one person in their inbox. The reason why that is because most employers don't have an 84% conversion rate of start to complete. This is normally more like 40 to 50%. Most employers don't see a 14% read to apply rate. That number is being impacted by us writing job ads for our clients. And so it actually, even if this 90 to 1 gives you hope, which it should, it's actually even bigger than that. What this really means is that there's a ton of people out there looking for jobs that don't end up in your inbox. What you are seeing in your inbox is a very, very small representation of the potential workforce out there. And these are only active job seekers. These are only people actively looking for jobs on Indeed. This doesn't count inactive passive job seekers who are currently working for your competitors but not actively looking. The fact and the goal of this walkaway from this one thing is there is a ton of potential to solve the problem without changing unemployment payouts, pulling people from other countries to bring them in on H-1B visas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are plenty of available people out there looking for a job who could apply for the job if they actually liked your job. If they actually liked your job and found it easy enough to apply. So that's kind of number one. So what our core first thing takeaway, so that I make sure that everybody watches this, gets some immediate value that they can act on tomorrow, is that if you wanted to increase this 1% right here, if you wanted to increase this number, which again is the comparison of how many people are searching versus how many actually end up in your inbox, if you wanted to do that, there's three very simple things. Number one, clarify who your target is, meaning who do you want to see your job on Indeed and what kind of keywords would they search for? So that's the very first one. Clarify your targets. This has to do with what words are they searching for. Take those words and make sure that if you go through your job ad, that those words are in there enough times. This is just SEO 101. Make sure you know what words people search for. Make sure those ads or those words are in your job ad, at least 1% of the words in your ad, but no more than 2%. So 1 to 2%, meaning if your job ad is 500 words, 1% would be 5 times. So you need that word to show up between 5 and 10 times in that ad. That is tip number one, immediate change, immediate impact. Tip number two is increase the engagement. What this means is if you have a normal job description, which is what this one over here on the left looks like, the way you know is if it has something like, if it has more than 10 bullets, if it spends more of its time talking about your list of, if it has the word responsibilities, skills, that type, not benefits, you know, those types of things in there, responsibilities, skills, requirements, that type of stuff, it means it's a job description. If it's focused on the employer, just think about this. What if our websites as tech companies were focused on what we wanted and not what the customer wanted? What if they were talking about the benefits to us, the software company, instead of the benefits to the customer? What if they were the list of the types of customers we wanted, but never talked about the benefits to those customers of working with us? We would fail from a marketing and client acquisition standpoint. Yet most job ads look like this one right here. They are not engaging. They don't tell the story to the job seeker of why they would want to work for you, why they should pick you over their options out there, why working for you would be exciting and beneficial and better than where they're at today. If you go read your job ad and it doesn't answer that, it's really quite simple. Hit us up. We can give you a template to use. But this job ad needs to answer why should I want to work for you? That's it. It doesn't need to give all this other stuff. It just literally needs to make the case to the job seeker of why this is a great opportunity. And that's it. So that's number two. Number three, decrease the friction. What I mean by that is if you think about it, it's two main things. Number one, clicks. And number two, time. How many clicks does it take to apply for a job and how long? How many minutes? And it would be great if you measure it in minutes, but many of you will have to measure it in hours. If your application process requires clicks, meaning going to a different website, you see right here, we can actually see this on this one I have right here, this apply on company career site. If I'm on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever, and as a job seeker, I click to apply and you make me leave that site, leave my login that I've already done and go create a new account, create a new login into your applicant tracking system, career site or whatever, re-enter all my information, that right there instantly creates friction. What they need to do is reduce the number of clicks, which means this is bad. We want to use apply. Oh my gosh, my spelling is horrible this morning. Apply on Indeed, apply on LinkedIn, apply on Facebook. We want them to stay there to apply. Number two is reduce the amount of time. Therefore, this means reduce the amount of questions you ask. If you were asking for references and a detailed 10-year work history, you're taking too much time. And unless you're Google or Facebook or Apple, people don't really want to work for you bad enough to jump through all those hoops. We're going to talk about how we get mentally to the point where we would realize this was what needed to change. But these are super low-hanging fruit, take action today, see progress tomorrow kind of things. Number one, make sure that the words that your prospective job seekers would search for are in your ad. Number two, increase the quality of that ad by having it focus on why this is a great opportunity for the job seeker, not your list of demands as an employer. And number three, make sure there's not very much friction. Make sure they're staying on the job board. Make sure that you limit the number of questions you ask. Your goal is not an employment application. Your goal is an initial expression of interest. This is a lead form. And that's probably because this is targeted towards tech companies. Just think about this right here. This is SEO here, choosing the right words. This is writing an engaging blog post right here. And this is your lead form. In between this is a call to action, right? I guarantee your company would never publish a blog that sounds anything like the job ads you publish. I guarantee your company would never publish a blog with a call to action as weak or as difficult as leave the blog, go somewhere else to fill out the lead form. Number three, I guarantee your company would never create a lead form as long and difficult and time consuming as your employment application. And yet we do that on the HR side of things, on the recruiting side of things, and we're surprised when we struggle to get applicants and we complain or point the fingers at, say, the government or unemployment or something else. But as you can see here, we're actually creating our own problem. If you gave this portion to the marketing team, this is the 3 steps a marketing team would take, right? Actually 4. They'd pick better targets. They'd use those keywords. They'd write an engaging piece of content. They'd make sure there was a clear and easy call to action, and they would ensure that completing that call to action was as simple and fast and easy as possible. So that's your low-hanging fruit. Now, what we're going to do for the rest of this time, though, is we're actually going to dig into maybe changing our paradigm about what's going on from a recruiting perspective and where we fit in it. Because I think a lot of companies, they don't actually stop and think through the challenges they're having and the problem set and where they stand in the market and what their current approach is, and if potentially their entire paradigm and approach might be wrong. They might actually be causing their own problems. What everybody tends to want, whether it's an HR or business owner, is they want this kind of stuff from me. And that's why I made sure I gave you some of the chocolate up front. So you've got the chocolate, you can go make some progress, but this is a hack, which is great because I love hacks, right? This is a quick and dirty hack of a way to increase it. But long-term competitive advantage comes from having the right mindset, the right fundamentals, the right approaches, the right frameworks, the right way of thinking about things. So while you can use this hack to get going up front, long-term, especially as a bootstrap company, as a startup, as somebody maybe the weaker competitor in the space, you got to outthink your competition. That always starts with having the right mindset. So today, the rest of this session, I'm going to walk through some easy ways to sit down with yourself, with your founding team, with your managers, and really think through and have a brutally honest, mature conversation about where you stand in the market and what's going on. And if you will walk them through this worksheet, we can send it out to you if you want. Use this worksheet with your team, go through and answer these questions. You will end up with having this massive shift in your mentality and paradigm when it comes to recruiting. So the very first thing we start with is how competitive is the market? What we're looking for is green being like a good thing and red being a bad thing. So you start with the supply of talent, and we basically say, well, what is the supply of available talent of people working for our jobs? Understand, this is not just unemployed people, although that's a group of them. It could also be people currently in college, so they're not in the job market. It could be moms who are raising kids and returning to the workforce. It could be people working for our competitors, their employees. It could be people working in other industries. So other industries, but similar job, or same industry, but different job. Both of those two have the potential to say, how big is the supply of talent? This is not the measurement of just unemployed people. This isn't even the measurement of active people on Indeed. This is the measurement of the entire, for our location, because most of us are location specific. How many people are available out there? Now, if the answer is green over here, where we're saying there's a ton of available talent out there, then this is awesome. You're going to put here like a ton, and down here, you're going to say none. There's only a handful of people out there who can do this job. If you're going to hire nuclear engineers, that might be the answer. There's almost none of them here in our area. That would be a red, meaning warning, right? Then you go to the next one and you say the same thing. What is the demand like for this talent? How many people, how many companies, times, how many jobs do they have open? How bad is the demand? Once again, if the demand for talent is extremely high in our location, in our industry, that's going to make it difficult. If the demand for talent is low, it is. Now let's stop right here and just think about this. Instantly, we now have, is this statistically relevant? No. I don't need any more data than this. This can be a gut feel from our managers, from our employees, from you as a founding team. Really, really simple in a 5-point, if you're really looking at this, say in like a 5-point thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a ton of talent or no talent or where in between? Take this and mark on it. We're right here. There is a decent amount of talent. There's above, this would be average, right? Then number 2, how many people are trying to get that talent? If what you say is there's not a lot of talent, but there are a ton of people wanting the talent, we are sitting right here in the red zone. That means we are in a hyper-competitive marketplace. Now, there is one caveat that can help us with this, which would be competitive alternatives of good or bad, meaning are there Low alternatives, meaning other, and this can go two ways. Competitive alternatives would be there's not other jobs that are pulling out of our industry. Other industries in the tech world, we tend to be the opposite, right? In the tech world, we tend to be at the top of the food chain. So we're pulling or have the ability to pull people from other industries into our industries. But on the opposite, you probably don't lose a lot of your tech team to restaurants. And so we tend to be green over here as an industry. If I was talking to construction companies and restaurants, though, they tend to be red. While they may have high demand for average supply of talent and a high demand for it, there's also other industries that are much sexier to work for that could be pulling talent out of there as well. And so they might be short-sighted thinking they're only competing with their direct competitors. This would be competitive alternatives is, are you competing with other companies outside of your industry or outside your location for talent, or vice versa on the green side? Are you able to compete with lower industries on the excitement potential scale, right? This right here gives us what we actually need. And most of you are probably saying, yeah, the answer is red, right? There's not a great, or maybe you're saying the answer is, maybe it's in here. It's right middle of the road, but the demand is crazy high in comparison. Therefore, we have higher demand than availability or supply. Then we go to number 2, which is the brutally honest part. So where do you fit in, right? Where do you fit into this size? Are you a big dog? And by that, I mean Google, Apple, Facebook. Or are you a small fry, right? Are you the little guy? Are you David? Or are you Goliath? Where do you fit in here? From a budget standpoint, are you like public or private equity funded? Maybe in here is VC, and this right here is bootstrapped. Look, I get it. If you don't have other people's, this clearly on this is our spectrum for other people's money, right? As we move to, you have other people's money to spend, clearly that changes things of where you sit. And the final thing is brand recognition, brand out in the marketplace. This isn't brand meaning your brand as far as your software brand for your customers. This is brand for potential employees, job seekers, etc. This is your employment brand. Do people even know you exist? Now, I remember early days starting up at Applicant Pro, and you may not know me. Just a quick caveat here as we look at where do you fit in. Applicant Pro has been around for 15 years, fully bootstrapped. We're at 12-month trailing of $20 million, growing at like 30% per year right now. 170 employees. In the last 3 months, we've hired 40. So we're at 100 and maybe 80 right now. But as of just a couple months ago, we were only at like 150, 140. So all the feelings you're feeling about hiring, we have the same problem set too. And if I marked this thing of who am I, right? I am bootstrapped, but now I have some profit, right? This might be, I'm profitable. Because that's at least something, right? I have a string of profits, right? So I'm probably now a little bit more into this range here, but I'm still pretty small. From a small fry standpoint, again, I'm probably in that same range here, 100 and 150 employees, whatever. From a brand standpoint in Utah, from a job seeker brand, I actually have a pretty strong job seeker brand. The real answer on this one is with your target. Because I'm going to show you that this brand or this concept can shift if you change who your target job seeker is. But so if you look at this, right, then I'm probably more in here with my company. But if you're a 10-employee startup or a 20-employee startup that's fully bootstrapped, that nobody really even knows you exist, you're down here, startup, bootstrapped. Clearly, that's going to be a challenge for you to recruit. And this is where we're comparing. hyper competitive market for talent. I'm in Utah. Utah tech scene, extremely competitive. If I'm down here, man, I have a huge mountain to overcome. I am officially David in a battle with not just one Goliath, but a ton of Goliaths. Now, if you are Apple or Google or any of those type of companies, they'd come in here and say, we're a big dog. We're a public company. Everybody knows we're an awesome place to work. They have it easy. And this is our very first takeaway of the paradigm here is what works for them will not work for you. What works for these guys up here, these are the big dogs. They have the most money, the most brand, the most longevity. They can get the pick of the litter because they are the big dog. They are the dominant person. If you try to copy them, you will fail. You don't have their money. So this is our first realization right here is we have to know that we are David or are we Goliath? Who are we on the spectrum, right? Once we know we're David, it sets the stage for everything that happens from here. Once we know it and accept it. If we are David, we do not pick up Goliath's shield or sword. We use sling and stones. We are not the Navy, we're the pirate, right? And that's the other way to look at it. This is the Navy, and these are pirates. Once we know that, I think all of us instinctively come to this realization when it comes to marketing our product and driving demand generation, but we all of a sudden throw all that knowledge out the door when it comes to acquiring talent. So let's go to the next one. And this is where we start to see as we get lower and lower down, we start to recognize potentially, and we can run through this from the Navy versus the pirate scenario and say right off the bat, what are we focused on, compliance or results? Now, the smaller the company is, if you don't have an HR person, most likely you're more likely to be focused on results. But if you're focused on compliance, this is normally where a head high-level HR person sits, is don't get us sued. Make sure we don't get sued. I'm not saying to do anything illegal, but a lot of times too much focus on compliance, it comes at the cost of results. Right? And so this is where the big dogs tend to be, big giant organizations, because their risk is so high. This is why it's very, very important not to copy what they do. Because if you copy a big dog public company, their job ads, their approach to recruiting, all that kind of stuff, it won't work for you. Right? Number two is quantity over quality. We want to be focused on quality. You get the same thing when it comes to lead flow. I'd rather have 10 awesome leads than 100 garbage leads. Even though like 100 makes me feel busy, this over here of just worrying about quantity, that works when you have a massive team and massive budgets and massive money to spend and a bunch of people to screen and filter them. If you are a big dog, you see, I have this set up as green versus red. Just understand it would switch around if you're Goliath. This is green for David, meaning if I focus on results, if I focus on quality, over here is budget. This is spending money on job boards, spending money on pay, increasing our recruiting budgets. And over here is creativity. Once again, it's easier if you're a big dog to use budget because they have tons of money. It's the easy low-hanging fruit to just throw a bunch of cash at it. It doesn't mean it's always effective. But if you get in a money battle with a big dog, you're going to lose. Your superpower is creativity. That's what it is. It's creativity. And then finally, maturity of approach. Now, this doesn't mean maturity of how big the organization is or how well structured the process is. This is where their focus is. Are you focused internally? Meaning what works for us? What does the manager want? Are you focused competitively? Meaning what is everybody else doing? Or are you innovative? You're focused externally on the job seeker. Innovative people, these guys focus on the job seeker or the employee. These guys focus on the alternatives, their competitors. And these guys focus on their process, their own managers. Again, this is what big companies do. But the small guys, us small guys, we got to play down here and focus on this. We have to, because if we try to focus on this side over here, we will fail. We will never have the size of team, nor the need to be that compliant. We don't have the money to drive that much quantity in this. We don't have the money to drive pay and all that kind of stuff. And we don't have the internal team anyway to focus. If you are running a red strategy here from an organization standpoint, but you're really a small organization with low budgets, you're going to fail. It's not surprising to me, because these guys are using money to make up for their lack of creativity, differentiation, originality. It's what they do. It's the same thing you do when it comes to lead flow, right? So next up, power of your brand. Same exact thing. And this power of your brand is a measurement versus number of employees, okay? Clearly, you're never going to have as many star ratings as well as Fargo, but as a percentage of total employees. So you look at this star rating, this is Indeed and Glassdoor. What I want to know is, compared to my total number of employees, how many reviews do I have and what is my star rating? Turnover, the same thing. How many people are leaving me? This is the number that leave versus number of employees. What's my turnover like? Are we losing? This is like churn, but for employees. Are we losing all of our people? If we're losing people, then we have a brand problem. And brand, by brand, I mean the experience of working for us. Direct engagement. This is a question of how many people that apply and get hired went and looked for your company specifically. I usually measure this by the number of website applications. How many people applied because of my website, because of my Facebook page, because of my company's brand, right? How many people, and you can use apply or interview or hire, right? Whichever data is if you're smaller, right? It's a little bit harder. And the final one is employee referrals. And then there's two ways to measure this. Way number one is the total number of referrals you get. And number two is how many referrals divided by number of employees. Referrals per employee. You could take number 3 on here. This would be the number of employees with at least greater than or equal to 1 referral in a given period of time. Those are kind of your 3 measurements. They're all just different ways to measure it, but effectively what you're saying is, are our employees happy enough that they're telling other people to come and work here? That's really, if we think about what this is, these top 2, this says, what are people saying out in the marketplace? Turnover is how bad are we bleeding, right? Because no matter how good you get on the top of the funnel, if the bottom of the funnel is leaking, you got a problem. But these last 2 say, how good is our marketing team at generating applicants, and how good is our employee base at generating applicants? And how good, you start with are they doing it at all? And it does say something about your brand, right? That now these 2, all 3 of these technically, but especially these last 2, if you're not doing well, it doesn't mean you have a terrible brand. It might just be that you're not trying to drive your brand. And there's things you can do about that one. So next up, now our next brutal honest thing, and this is probably the most important discussion you can have with your managers and your founding team. Who are we trying to hire? Are we trying to hire people with, and again, I have green versus red, and it is kind of opposite of, this is the highest level of education, like master's, and this is down here like high school diploma. Because it's not saying that people with high school diplomas are better. It's saying that there's more of them, right? There's more of them available. People with lots of experience, 10 plus years, people with no experience, people with tons of skills. And so this would be extensive and in depth, tons of skills, and they know them really well, versus new people with no skills. Not that they can't have skills. These are more like diamonds in the rough. And then results. People who've had great results at big companies right? They've done the job before and been successful at it, versus not saying they failed. Clearly, we don't want people who failed, meaning they just haven't done it before. They haven't done it before. They maybe haven't seen it done before, right? Who are we trying to hire? Now, I'm not judging you on who you want to hire through this, but just understand when you say, I want this person right here, I want somebody with an MBA with 10 plus years experience who has all the skills, has a proven track record, has done exactly what I want them to do before, right? If that is who you're after, then we have to jump to the next one that says, cool, this is who we're after. This is red. It's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard because there's not as many of these people. There's low number, and there's going to be high demand for them. Over here on the left side, there's going to be tons of these people and a lot lower demand. Here's the brutally honest question when we say, here's who we're going to hire. You jump to the next one and you say, okay, for the job seekers above, how good is our value prop? How good is the opportunity of working for us for those job seekers? And what we're doing here is we're balancing this against each other. If your team says, excuse me, if your team has decided they want the best of the best of the best talent, you come down here and you're like, but in the eyes of the best talent, we have the lowest pay. We have the worst work experience. Like we work them a ton of hours. We give them low perks. They can't work from home, whatever. Career growth, subject matter, prestige, right? Same thing. Like, what is the opportunity of working for us like? There's no growth. It doesn't make or break their career. Just think about it. In the tech world, if you had Apple on your resume, you'd get any job you want, right? There's no prestige. Maybe it's like we're building this boring system. It's an old, mature system. We're not building new stuff and new code. We're not doing over here would be, stuff like you have this dominant, like working for Apple. Maybe you're working on AI or machine learning or something super sexy like this. You have this career ladder, right? Maybe you have something that's like, we have mentors that will help you with it, etc. Right? Again, working here creates this huge network of people who leave and go to other big prestigious companies. Again, where are we at? And then finally, culture and values, right? What is your culture and values like? Is it something that these big guys will want? Now, this is where the hard comparison is. If we want to hire the best of the best of the best talent, but working for us is not the best of the best, we have a problem, right? And so a lot of times I think that one of the biggest challenges we have in life, let alone in recruiting, is if our expectations are up here, but we don't or can't or are unwilling to do what it takes to reach them, then we end up being constantly dissatisfied. And this is probably one of the very best and most important things that helps companies, business owners, founding team managers right now, realizing we're trying to hire the best people with the worst offering. It's not going to work. We're trying to hire, it's like competing in a very highly competitive space, trying to charge the most amount of money with the weakest product. It doesn't work. That's not how the world works. Supply and demand says it doesn't work. And so this one right off the bat, and it makes it easy for us to understand what we would have to do. If we want to hire the best of the best of the best people, we're going to have to up our game. But David's generally can't do that because you don't have the money and the resources, right? And this doesn't even exist, at least not in a way that you can guarantee or prove. You sometimes can check the box on culture, and sometimes you can work on something that is new and sexy, right? So sometimes you can check the box on those two, but you can't. And so that's why Davids tend to have to focus down here, because what they have to offer is in here. If you, once again, get out of whack, get out of balance, where you're trying to demand or look for the best of the best people, but yet your offering is weak, then what you're going to do is that either A, they won't apply, B, they won't accept your offer, or C, they'll quit. That isn't the recipe for success. Now, that might lead you to say, you know what we need to do to increase this? We need to go and take some VC or private equity money. And if that's what you got to do, and that is a solution, that's not always the best solution. It's not the only solution, but that is an option. For me at my company, I've gone and adjusted this up here and set this lower bar threshold. I went and said, look, I'm going to take product management as a good example. If I was going to hire product managers with an MBA, with years and years of experience in product management, with tons of skills, they know agile and all that kind of stuff, who've worked in a company that's 10 times bigger than mine, I couldn't compete for that talent. So I instead said, you know what, I'm going to hire people. Maybe this is a BS degree, but maybe this is in a different, as we move down here, maybe they studied something different, finance, not tech, right? So I'm like, look, I'm going to be willing to hire people in this box for product manager. Experience. I'm going to be willing to hire people who don't have actual product management experience, but maybe they have customer support experience. They've at least got experience in the tech world, something like that. I'm going to hire somebody down here who, again, it isn't that they don't have the potential for skills, they just haven't done it before. And I'm going to hire somebody down here who doesn't have a track record of results. I just know that they like judging from their personality and from their culture and their values. I know if I train them, they would be great. This allows me to hire people that fit my budget, right? Now I can say, look, I'm not going to be able to pay as good, but that's because I'm paying entry-level wages because these people are entry-level, right? I can, though, create some cool work experiences, and this growth isn't about moving up the ladder. It's about building the experience to be able to move up the ladder at some other organization. I have to be willing to support that in 3 or 5 years, my product managers are probably going to move on and go work for a unicorn or something like that. And I'm good with that. But I do have the ability to create some awesome culture and values that will fit this target market of people, because they're different than the culture and values that the people on the right want. Next up. Okay, now we've got this in alignment. We've decided here's the people we want to target, and we make sure this is what you're looking for here is alignment. Alignment between your target job seeker and your value proposition for them. You get alignment around that. Now you say, great, how are we going to source them? We need to find some balance. One of the biggest mistakes that most companies right now are making is that they're almost completely relying on free job boards for their traffic. That's the same as being completely reliant on Google free organic. There's nothing wrong with it when it works, but the biggest problem is you have no lever to pull. There's nothing you can do if you need more of it. You can try, you can throw stuff at it, but you just don't have enough control. Level 2, so this is like level 1. Percentage of, again, you can look at this as applicants or interviews or hires, right? Normally what I see is percentage of free job boards applicants is that this is probably 90% plus, and this is 10%, and you're along the spectrum. What percentage of your applicants or your interviews or hires are coming from the free job boards? That doesn't mean that using the free job boards is bad. It just means you need to balance them out. Number 2 is spend on job boards. This is an interesting one. For the last decade, we have, for the most part, been addicted on free traffic from the job boards. In the 1980s and 90s, employers would spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars per job to advertise in the newspaper and Career Builder and Monster. Now we've gone down to where we have no budget. And so when we suddenly have to spend money, everybody freaks out. The fact is that the days of spending nothing to get applicants are probably mostly over. So you need to, if this is level 1, you need to then go to level 2. That's like, now we're going to have to spend some money. What I was talking about of increasing targeting, engagement, and decreasing friction to apply, that will actually amplify the value you get from the spending on job boards and everything else, right? But it's when you get down into your level 3 and level 4, this is where most employers go wrong. They don't have, and this balance could not just be, you could think about on balance of the output, meaning which is applicants, interviews, and hires. You could also think about it on value on the balance of your attention or energy or focus. Because a lot of times what happens is, again, the lagging indicator is the output, But the question is, how much attention does the founder, the founding team, the management team, if you do have an HR person, the HR person, how much attention, energy, and focus do they put on making and doing the things that will drive employee referrals or will drive sourcing from your fan base on your website or Facebook? I just want to show you, this is actually our numbers for, this is year-to-date 2021. I want you to focus on a couple little things from the metrics. Number one, our best source of applicants is clearly Indeed, second to these other paid job boards. But our best source of hires is employer referrals. That's the number one thing to think about. This is a quantity, and this is a quality metric. If you're doing it right, employer referrals should account for 50+% of your new hires, period. If it doesn't, you're doing it wrong. Either you're doing the employer referrals wrong, or you have a bad brand as far as the experience of working for you. You haven't figured that out. Number two thing to look at is this score over here. This is a measurement of what percentage of people who apply get hired by source. You could invert that and it would tell you how many people do you need to apply in order to hire one person. What you see here is that for this says that it takes 1,000 people to hire 7. If I do the opposite, on my other report actually has this. If I do the opposite math, I'll just do it really quick. 7 divided by 1056 means that, 1056 divided by 7, sorry. Means that we have to have 150 people, we need 150 applicants to make one hire from a free job board like Indeed. If I do the opposite, 169 divided by 12, I get 14. So what you see here is that quantity is super cool unless your conversion rate is so low because the quality of those people isn't very high. This doesn't mean that Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whoever the case may be, the free job boards are bad or that those job seekers inherently have bad quality. There's something about using an employee referral that makes those job seekers a higher quality than those just random ones coming from Indeed. Most likely is that they know us and they know the people who work for us. They already know our values and our culture, especially as a small guy, as a bootstrapper. They know what it's like to work here, and they're most likely similar in mentality to our current employees, and that's what makes them so much better. Now, next part, what weapons do you use to compete? So this is a war for talent. Please understand that. This is a war, which means that using the right tools and being aggressive with them is what matters. Now, if you take, once again, this is very similar. Do you use money as one of your weapons? Most likely you don't if you're a small guy, because even if you're using money, you will never have the money that the big guys have. And by money, I either mean budget, like spend on recruiting, or I mean pay, perks, benefits, etc. It's a mix of both. Do you throw money at the problem? Most likely throwing money at the problem is a Goliath thing. Number two, what level of engagement are you driving? Are you maximizing the engagement of what's going on, right? Because you can make up for a lack of money by saying we focus on driving engagement, making it easier, reducing the friction, writing awesome job ads, etc. But if you're like, we have boring job ads and we use job descriptions and we have a lot of friction. You see, the way to make up for a lack of money is to drive engagement more. The next one is differentiation. Do you focus on being the same or do you focus on being different? Different might mean a different target. It might mean different perks or benefits. It might mean a different value prop. For me, I hired part-time moms for a long, long time. Part-time moms view my value proposition different than full-time, straight out of college kids, right? And so what this allowed me to do was it allowed me to take and say, I'm going to use differentiation to make up for my lack of budget. I'm going to use a better, more engaging job ad or an easier process to make up for my lack of budget. And then the final one is creativity. How creative, this is like, will you try new things? How fast are you at trying new things, right? Do you use the innovative iteration process or not? And so this might be, we do the same. And what I would call this is best practice. Over on the left is we try new things all the time. We experiment. So let me show you what Goliath looks like. If I take Goliath as purple, this is what a big company does. A big company uses their money, even though most of the time their ads are boring, they're not very different, and they're not very creative. But their money is the amplifier. Now, the way that David competes with them, if I grab David over here, is David says, look, we're not going to have very much money, so we're going to focus on being engaging and different and creative. That is what you have to do as David, is you have to say, this is what we're going to do. That's our sling and stones. If you instead say you're going to do the same thing as the big guys, only with less money, it's not a surprise at all that we struggle to hire, because this is what most of us are doing. We're copying what the big dogs do, but with less money. So there's nothing there to make up for them being boring, low engagement, not differentiated. When you just think about this right off the bat, when you copy the job ad of one of your competitors, you are creating a commodity. It is therefore not differentiated. So those are the weapons. The final ones in here is, how aggressive are you? Are you aggressive at studying the job board? This is just a funnel. Are you optimizing it and improving it all the time? Or do you just post and pray? Do you actually do things to market your jobs to your fans, your followers, that type of stuff, or no? Are you aggressive? Employee referrals, this is no program. This is, we have a program. This is all we talk about. My company right now, every meeting we talk about employee referrals every single time. All the time, employee referrals. We run contests. We don't just announce new hires. We make sure to announce the name of the person who referred them. We make a big deal out of it. Every meeting we talk about employee referrals. That's how we get the results we get. Differentiation, this right here is kind of like, we don't do it, none. This is if we have to. And this is, we pride ourselves. Right? Being different is what matters to us. It's who we are. And so again, how aggressive are you with this? And the last one, I think this is our last slide. This is more conceptually when we zoom up. Our desire to be different. Do we want to be different all the time? Do we do it because we have to? Right? Or do we not want to be different all the time? We focus on being the same. It's safe being the same. Our speed to test new ideas. Are we fast? Again, if you think about David versus Goliath, your Goliaths don't want to be different. They're very slow to try new ideas. Their willingness to change is very, very low. And their willingness to adjust or even ability to adjust their value prop, because changing something like PTO is going to affect 10,000 people. That they are very slow. They're very slow. Your offset to this is to be fast, to be agile, to be nimble, to try new things, to be different, to be fast, to be willing to change, and to do it proactively, not reactively, and not at all. And so this aggressiveness. So hopefully this makes sense. As far as we walk through kind of what we covered today, we need to change our paradigm. We need to understand that we're in a competitive market, but we're not very competitive. We have to understand that we have to be competitive in ways that fit our superpower as the Pirates and Davids of the world, not as the Goliaths and Navies of the world. We have to use their slowness to change against them. We need to use all the weapons available that are not money, knowing that then a little bit of money will go a long ways when we have super engaging ads, low friction, when we're different, when we're being creative, right? We need to focus on quality, not quantity, to make sure that we really make the best use of every opportunity, every minute, every hour, etc. Right? We need to have a balanced sourcing approach, specifically focused on employee referrals. And just this note here, employee referrals are not about just the number of employees. It's the number of employees times the engagement equals the results. Your big Goliath might have lots of employees, but they're not very engaged. You make up for it by increasing the engagement where you can match them on an employee referral standpoint. Once again, we have to make sure that we have a good value proposition in comparison to who we're trying to hire. If that's out of whack, nothing else matters here. And finally, like, we need to be able to build some type of brand power. So thank you so much for watching this session today. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer any of them. Reach out to me. You can reach me at ryankohler@applicantpro.com. We'll send you an email with this webinar, and you can just reply back to it. If you want this worksheet, we can provide it as a download. If you'd like to schedule a time for us to actually go through and talk through this with your organization or with your team, more than happy to do that as well. But thanks so much for watching our session today, and we'll talk to you later.